Hello, I'm Ricky.
And I'm Joe, and this is Season 5, Episode 17 of the Beer and Broadband Podcast, slated to come out on November 21st, 2022. It is the week before Thanksgiving in the United States. Next week will be our Thanksgiving episode, but for today, we're not going to talk about Thanksgiving stuff. Instead, we're going to talk about French toast. And specifically, I mean Left Hand Brewing's French Toast Milk Stout. At the bottom, it says, "From our hand to yours." That's not creepy at all. So it's a brunch-inspired brew with notes of maple syrup, vanilla, and rich caramel malt. 6% ABV. And I will say, my favorite, stout that I've had in the last, few years, or not my favorite, but in my, top 10, is this French toast stout that another company that's here in North Carolina does, I'm having a moment. Can't think of their name. Wicked Weed is the name of the company, and they do a really fantastic one. So I'm wondering if this, because I don't have a bottle of that, holds up to the memory of that other one, which was absolutely delicious.
Okay, yeah. Because I was going to start my thing off as I know we've had some of these before. It is not as good as I remember the other one being.
No, it's not.
But it is still pretty good.
It is still pretty good.
I will say it is a darker beer at the start than it is at the finish. It's a little weird that when it first hits your tongue, it's kind of acrid. It's very deep.
Yep.
But as soon as it hits the rest of your tongue,
it pulls out that maple syrup.
It really
butter.
lightens up, and you get that vanilla, all that other really good stuff into it. So it's not bad. I don't think I could get somebody to drink this that doesn't like stouts. It's not some of those other ones that have been I could get my wife to drink this.
Yeah.
I couldn't get my wife to drink it. It still is a little bit too bitter. But it's pretty good, all things considered.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
I hate it, but I don't hate it. So, I drink this all day long, but because I know the other one exists, I don't like this one.
I get what you're saying. It doesn't live up to the memory of the other one. We might have to do a side-by-side at some point to see how much is my memory different from if I'm in reality. But this is one of the few, breakfast stouts I would actually have with breakfast.
Yes.
This with a stack of pancakes would be great.
Would be fantastic. Absolutely.
Know?
Yeah. I don't, so I said I hate it. I don't really hate it. I mean, Left Hand Brewing, I love most of your stouts. I like the milk stout that you guys do. I like you guys do another one that's Kentucky bourbon. I might be. I've tried a bunch of beers in the last year. Maybe getting the names off, but I know that there's 3 or 4 that I really like. This one, the reason that I don't like this one as much is that the flavors are on the back end, not the front end. And on the other one, the flavors were on the front end. So when you get it, when you drink it, the first thing you taste is French toast and maple syrup. And then the butter kind of comes in on the back. And it's more like you're experiencing a breakfast.
Yeah.
Where this one is more like I accompany a breakfast, and I'll make those other things kind of linger a little bit longer.
I think you've really hit the nail on the head. The problem with this beer is I don't savor taking the next sip.
Yep.
I don't want to keep going back in. But this would be great to wash food down with.
Right.
Because you're drinking something to kind of get that strong flavor out of your mouth anyway, and then this finish is very light and very good. So I think there's a different use case.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely a different use case. It's not my. It's not my thing though. I hate it. I hate that it's not my thing. I was so pumped about this. I was Left Hand. You give me another option for a seasonal beer that's like a French toast. Now I'm absolutely going to have to go back. See if Wicked Weed has any of the French toast, because I don't know if that was a limited run or not.
Yeah.
And then see if I can find some more of this. And if I can, we might do episode 21 this year where we talk about that. Just have because I know our last 2 episodes are probably going to be tea and coffee, because we're talking about doing something like that where we do some experiments with tea and coffee. Maybe we'll do another one where we have the 2 stouts side by side.
Yeah. Look, and to maybe continue in the trend of what would this be good in cooking wise, I've been to 1 or 2 places that does pancake and breakfast that they don't serve the pancakes with syrup. they put almost like a little glaze or icing
Yep.
like in between the two pancakes, or sometimes like on the top one. This would be great with that. You like, use this as your base instead of your water for when you're making your frosting or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's like you make a maple syrup that has, or not a maple syrup, but a syrup that's out of this, and then you add some maple like to it to make the maple flavoring come out a little bit more. I can see that being really good. Yeah, it would like add to those buttery notes and things like that, and then have a little bit of bitterness to tone down the sweetness.
Well, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I think that's the real fit here, is that this little like very kind of bitter start would be so good if it had something like that was already sweet on my tongue that was coming in, So like if this was mixed into something that already just had some sweetness and brought it out from the beginning, or I was having this with something that was sweet, Yeah,
exactly. So let's talk about paying for 4K YouTube. Now, I want you to tell me, have you heard about this?
I have heard about this.
All right, so I am a YouTube Red subscriber because I hate ads, and that's the most difficult thing to do. But I got it when I wanted to have Google Play Music. I hate Google Music. I hate Google Music. It sucks. But I wanted Google Play Music. What? I heard something in the background talking to me. Hopefully nobody else heard it.
Ghosts.
But and I think somewhere else in the other part of this house there's music playing.
Maybe.
But I wanted those services, so I got I got that subscription. So this is not really a problem for me, and I don't care about anything over 1080p generally, especially when you're talking about YouTube, because the compression like sucks and stuff like that. But I do have some like thoughts on why this is crappy. So I'm gonna let you go first, and I kind of laid my hands out there a little bit.
Yeah. So here's the thing: I also pay for YouTube because I use YouTube Music, and I'm not gonna deal with ads in my music service. I use YouTube a lot. It is probably my primary like video content place. Watch it with the kid, watch it privately for myself, gaming videos, stuff like that. While I kind of don't like that they're monetizing YouTube in another way, this is one of those few things I can see a little bit. Because, this was a big discussion in early days of streaming, is that people that were doing really high quality streams were being asked to like lower their bit rates and stuff like that because it puts so much extra strain on the systems. So, if they were to turn around and say, hey, everything can now have 4K, there's no cost associated with it, that is a big CapEx expense on YouTube side.
Yep.
And while, it's not like Google is short on money, YouTube traditionally is not really a money generator. So you would be taking on a lot of CapEx expense for really probably not an increase in your profitability. People are going to come to the platform because now it's in 4K and it wasn't in 4K before.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm kind of neutral on it. I'm not happy it's happening, but, it's one of the few like corporate, pull-offs that I can kind of see. Unlike the chip episode where I just don't see a world where that makes sense to me. This at least I can see from a monetary standpoint makes a bit of sense.
I kind of agree. So for me, it comes down to a 1080p video that you encode a certain way and have a certain bit rate on. Let's say you max all that stuff out, may take up about like 20, 30 gigs, depending on the size of the video.
Yeah,
you're talking about taking up maybe 100, 150 gigs of space for an 8K video. Now that could go anywhere from 60 gigs to whatever, and you can use things like NVENC encoding, H.265, the new Intel HEV1. I forgot what that encoding is, but all that stuff shrinks the size of those files, so it creates like a compressed file with as good as or close to as good as quality. So that saves some of that space. Let's say you get it, a 1080p file down to like 5 gigs or 4 gigs. That's pretty good. 720p is like 2 gigs, and you're not having to do any transcoding. You're actually storing those things locally.
Yeah.
You talk about uploading something at 4K or 8K and then having to transcode it down or like buffer it down. You're talking about something that's 4, 5, 6 times that size.
Mm-hmm.
So the storage space for it is immense. So from that standpoint, I can totally understand why a company that has really tight profit margins may say, look, we'll continue to host your 1080p, 720p, 480p. We'll continue to encode and decode and all that other stuff. We'll put those on our content servers. Sure, we'll do that. We're not going to, without getting some sort of recompense, host anything that's higher than 1080p. The thing that I don't like about it is you gave this, up until this point, as a touted like thing. YouTube now in 4K, like all over the place, right? To people for free.
Okay.
So
that
I don't
part
like that.
I didn't know, and that is a little scummy. If
Yeah.
that's an existing feature and now you're making it a pay for feature, I'm not a huge fan of that.
Yeah.
I kind of only heard about the 4K stuff when they were talking about monetizing it, because I still live in a 1K world. I don't have any monitors higher up, and what part of my argument was going to be, YouTube does not talk to my monitor,
Right.
so like I've gone onto videos that had higher than 1K, and it's auto playing at that higher one. I'm not seeing it because I'm on a 1K monitor, but I'm taking up that bandwidth.
Right.
So like, yeah, that's a bit. That's really something they should have thought through before they started offering those video resolutions.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, I don't necessarily think it's a wrong move. And I think in this case, it, like if you had started from the beginning because you knew how much that was going to be, but you touted that as one of the reasons for people to use your platform. Now, and people don't have, there is no other platform like YouTube. Like, you don't get a platform that has a repository of human knowledge except for a library. YouTube is like the video library of the world.
Yeah.
And it has content out there that's good and bad, that is knowledge and, disservice, but that is what a library has in it. Mm-hmm. It has false and correct information in it. And you go there and you research that stuff and you can make your own judgments on it. YouTube is kind of the same way. And I don't think there should be government regulation necessarily for everything, but there probably should be some sort of human protection, right? Mm-hmm. So there should be regulations from that sense, not necessarily a government like the United States or, the EU or, any of those other governments that are sitting down and saying, we're regulating this. That's probably the people that would do it, but that's not necessarily what I think should happen. But this should be one of those things that kind of becomes protected. Now, 1080p is just fine. I think they could just cut out the whole 4K crap and just be done with it, and it'd be fine. Mm-hmm. It'd be okay. Your cell phone's not going to need a higher... It doesn't matter if you have a 4K screen on your tiny 5-inch cell phone. You're not going to notice it. Your eyes cannot... and especially as you get older, like, you can audio file that crap up, but that's just not going to happen, So I think that this is one of those things that it's crappy because... This is the library of human knowledge in video format. Yeah. And we're taking a part of it away to try to monetize that library. Totally everything I said about this being a private company and other episodes still applies. From an ethical standpoint, it's kind of a crappy move.
Yeah, and you're right. And it gets, especially because of how widely used YouTube is, it puts it in this really weird spot where there are people that use YouTube purely as like lowbrow entertainment. I'm watching prank videos. Yep. I'm, following, the general way I would use YouTube, if we're talking about the day to day for me, I'm watching some guy do a video game playthrough. I'm watching some gun channel because I like watching this old man shoot guns, stuff like that. It's not that important. And if it went away in that context, it's not a big deal. But on the flip side, there's universities that put all of their lectures up. There's professors that record study material for their classes.
Southeast Linux Fest.
Exactly. There's all those things. I remember seeing a post from somebody who was freaking out because the study guide that their professor recorded and uploaded to YouTube got content striked Like, so he's trying to study for his exam that happened in like 48 hours, and the study guides isn't there anymore. You know, and that becomes kind of that level that like YouTube is not saying, you know, come to me to do those things, but that's how people are using your platform.
Yeah.
And
they did say come to me in the past to do those things.
Yeah, but you know, but in changing those things has effects on real people.
Yes.
You know, and I think that's that weird line, same way with Twitter and Facebook, that like they've been integrated into society. So yeah, they're a private company, yeah, there's a private platform, but like you make certain changes, real people get hurt.
Yep.
You know. So it's a weird place to be in. And so for that end, you know, if they're now trying to charge for a feature they previously did for free, that's a bit scummy. I'll 100% give you that. That's just bad business practice.
So on the flip side of that, Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Basic with ads. Have you heard about this?
I have. We're thinking about getting rid of our Netflix. The thing that holds us in, we are trapped in having a child.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing about
Netflix Kids.
Well, I mean, it's not even Netflix Kids. This is the thing I have such a hard time wrapping my head around with Netflix. They have so many shows that are just trash.
Yeah.
They're awful. I mean, if you tell me something is a Netflix original, I don't think immediately. I normally think, oh, it's probably pretty bad, right?
Yeah.
You're about to tell me it's the worst show you ever
worst
watched.
show.
But then they have a couple things that are just iconic. They're perfect. I'm not sure if you've ever seen Storybots.
Yep.
But it's so good. And they've got like Octonauts on there,
Yes.
which is a super popular kids show.
Yep.
And it's like, I might be able to get Octonauts somewhere else. But like Storybots is a Netflix original. I can't get that anywhere else.
Nope.
And so, you know, I haven't done it yet. But I'm considering looking to see if there's other places online you can get some of those things.
Well, let's talk about it afterwards.
Yeah.
So so there's no other place, just putting that out there. There's no other place online that you're going to get like Storybots legally. This all Netflix. And you know, this Netflix thing is stupid. You know, they're trying to, but it's because they were the only streaming platform for so long, and they had a monopoly on it, but they were so inexpensive, and everyone was putting their stuff on there. When everyone decided to like go back to cable and have like all the different streaming platforms that you'd have to pay to like have like all the different services, they basically just killed Netflix, which is good in some ways, but I mean, like, hold my hand over my heart watching a fellow soldier, you know, be lowered into the ground kind of deal. Maybe that's the wrong sort of imagery, but what I mean is Netflix had the promise of being this great platform that everyone could come to, and for a low cost per month, not having to pay the media moguls a ton of money, be able to, you know, so from that purpose. But how low have they sunk to where they're having to now put ads in they're Huluing it. And Hulu was the, you know, Darth Vader, you know, Sith Lord of streaming platforms when they came out, because they did crap like this. And this is the next step afterwards. So you get a basic with ads tier where you have to watch more ads, and then you get one where you watch one long ad and you pay more money to get fewer ads, but it's one long ad at the beginning of every episode that you watch.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I paying you if you're ad supported?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, it's so weird to live in that. 'Cause, I mean, again, you have to go back to thinking about what was Netflix. Mm-hmm. You know, and probably the people that are name traders that listen to this podcast, they know. But for anyone that isn't, you used to get Netflix in the mail. It was a competitor to like...
Well, it was DVD.com, and it was a competitor to a cheaper alternative to like Blockbuster.
Yeah, and you know, you wouldn't know what Blockbuster is either if you're too young to know what Netflix was. But like, you know, a rental store. You know, it was to replace, hey, I'm going to go in and rent a movie, or I'm going to go rent a TV show. And you were just getting the DVDs for all these things. And there's no ads on a DVD. There was never I never went to Blockbuster.
Oh,
and
wait,
had to watch
you did,
an ad.
don't you remember the Disney DVDs that had the unskippable ads at the beginning of them?
Yeah, but that was Disney. And that, in all honesty, happened a little bit later than this did.
Yeah,
There was that era of
Blu-rays and DVDs that have ads at the beginning.
Well, they included the trailers
Yeah.
at the beginning, and you couldn't skip them. But I just wonder, like, how have we gone back to that so far? That this was a platform that started from its very inception in a no-ad environment and had been profitable for more than a decade, has now messed things up so bad that they feel like they have to have ads to be able to turn their profits.
Yeah, exactly. It sucks so much.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm considering getting rid of my Netflix. I've had it since Netflix came out as a streaming service. I'm considering getting rid of it now.
Yeah, I mean, once my kid's old enough that she doesn't like to watch like the really young kid shows, we're probably not going to keep it anymore.
I want to kind of watch through the Henry Cavill Witcher.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how I'm going to like go for the new Witcher that's taking Geralt's place.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how that plays out because there's been nothing really official to it yet, but like Henry Cavill has been vocal that the only reason he would leave the show is if they started making like story decisions he didn't agree
to. Yep.
And he's a pretty nerdy fan of that series.
Yep.
So, there's the chance that he left because he just had some other role that was super great. And if that happened, sure, that's great. But if he left because of creative differences, it makes me worry about what the next season's going to be like.
I think not the next season, but the season after.
Yeah, whatever the one that he's not going to be in.
Yeah, the fourth season. All right. So, anyways, this has been Season 5, Episode 17 of the Beer and Broadband Podcast. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time.